Let's try that again. Okay. Oh, how the heck am I going to start this video? Hey, this is Arsene from Rambling Rican. I'm a lot more depressed today. As the title suggests, he lost. For those who are figuring out what the hell I'm talking about, I did a video, just I guess now a couple weeks ago, about a Supreme Court case that had been bugging me since the oral arguments back in November of 2021. And the decision came last week. It's taken me this long. I think this is like the 5th time I tried doing this video, and it's been a few days. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out, well, first of all, I went back to read all of the concurrences and the dissent and what the actual, I'm gonna do my best not to curse, but bullshit answer that Kavanaugh gave. And as I said that I wasn't gonna try to curse, but it really is a BS answer. It's really frustrating. This basically further cements colonialism. So for those that are trying to figure out what the hell I'm talking about, especially the new people in Rumble, hi. I've been around on YouTube for now about 14 years-ish. Math, I'm not doing that right now. But, the original case involved, it was the United States versus Vaello Madero. And Vaello Madero is the last name of a man named Jose Luis. He is Puerto Rican. Born and raised in Puerto Rico, moved to the United States, specifically New York, in '85. And I think in 2012, when his wife was sick. And of course, he had gotten, I think he had done like a series of strokes and had became disabled. They decided that they were going to go home to die with dignity and with his family. And so they did. And in the process, it left because he had applied for SSI, which is Supplemental Security Insurance, if I got that right. I always keep screwing it up. A lot of us always confuse that with Social Security, which Puerto Rico does have, but it does not have SSI. And so the process was he had started getting the payments while he lived in New York, and then he moved to Puerto Rico, but didn't tell the government. He ended up, voluntarily telling the Social Security office when he became of age, where you switch from SSI to regular Social Security. And it was at that time that they became aware that he had that arrangement where he still had his bank account, still getting Social Security in New York, but not in Puerto Rico. While he was in Puerto Rico, which now is solidified as a federal offense. And so that started the process. It's a whole long slew as to what he went through in the middle of Hurricane Maria. And 2 courts had agreed that, this is absolute BS and he should be getting it. He qualified for it and you're allowed to move, but apparently not. And I appreciated, obviously, Sonia Sotomayor. Sonia, of course, is, like me, first gen Puerto Rican, United States American, living in the United States, to Puerto Rican parents. And so I'm not gonna say that I expected it, but I agreed with her dissent. This had nothing to do with finances, and it shouldn't have been, because if that were the case, half of the United States doesn't pay into it, including all the poor states in the South specifically. And the fact that DC, which isn't even a state, and the Mariana Islands, which is part of the Insular Cases, I gave up on that. But the two that really got me were Gorsuch and Thomas. Their concurrences were the synopsis, at least to my understanding, because I'm not a lawyer, is that because they didn't challenge the Insular Cases or the citizenship clause, both which would have, in my opinion, changed the course of this. And yes, there are far-reaching consequences, as Kavanaugh says. That's your job, damn it. Like, so he's totally fine with this being the... Y'all went to war to not be part of England as a colony. And you're okay with us being... Focus. So, so the part that I appreciated, specifically from Gorsuch, and I had highlighted that in my previous video about where he just went off on the United States lawyer on, you know, dude, like, we're all in agreement the Insular Cases should be gone. I'm glad that he brought it back up again. So to explain what the hell the Insular Cases are. Insular Cases are a series of Supreme Court cases that came about as a result of the United States getting new territories. Now, at that time, you have to remember the last, 50 years between the end of the Spanish-American War, which was 1898, and anywhere between 1830, 1840, 1850, the United States was in the process of fighting a bunch of wars, getting a bunch of different treaties, and adding new states. And so all the way up to where you got to the islands, because anything that was physically attached to basically what we know now as the lower 48, most of that was somebody else's territory. And so as the United States started adding them, they immediately became states. Like, half of this, they didn't voice vote. Sort of like, all right, what can you offer? Can you pay us this much? Totally fine. Welcome to the United States. And they stopped when they got to Hawaii and Alaska. There's a whole video I can do what the hell they did with Alaska and Hawaii. Hawaii specifically, that's its own video. But anything that came, the islands that came afterwards in 1898, which at that point was Guam, Philippines, Cuba, and Puerto Rico. The beginning, first couple of years, so like 1898 all the way up to like 1900, 1901, you had a whole bunch of legal questions as what the heck they're going to do financially with these islands, specifically Puerto Rico, because Puerto Rico is the largest out of those. At that point, Cuba was its own problem, and they were too busy having wars with Philippines because they didn't take too kindly to the invasion. So, anyway, so most of the Insular Cases were all of these different things that had to do with maritime law, taxation, crop distribution, all of like legal logistics of business people trying to basically get away with not paying taxes on the island. And that was where the Supreme Court had a bunch of decisions that solidified the position that we're in now. None of them are states of the United States. They will never be states of the United States. We're nothing but a possession, and Congress can do whatever the hell they want with us. And that's law, and has been for 120 odd years. In fact, for the past 100 years, we're not even allowed to have a trial by jury, or we're not guaranteed the right to have a trial by jury. And I had mentioned that in the previous video. And so now you can just add that, Congress is not compelled to extend constitutional rights to the island of Puerto Rico. All because it's too damn expensive. Gee, I wonder why it became so expensive. That's its own video. And if anybody is interested in me trying to break that stuff down, that's gonna be a while. But it can be done. Oh, so what happens now? He was facing 5 years in jail and restitution of the 28 grand. Reminder, he's poor. He can't work. So at this point, the United States government has done a really good job in solidifying that yes, you can get blood from a stone, because they're about to do it again. This is one of the titles of one of the articles, I forgot which one, where they sacrificed the poor for the almighty dollar. And that's exactly what happened. So the frustrating part when it comes to the legalese part was, I thought that this would have been a good case to reverse the Insular Cases. There was some discussion as to whether or not that was the direction they should have gone. And then reading, Justice Gorsuch, that is the direction that they should have gone. And in fact, all right, I'll read it. This is Justice Gorsuch concurring. So concurring meaning that he agrees with the majority opinion. A century ago, in the Insular Cases, this court held that the federal government could rule Puerto Rico and other territories largely without regard to the Constitution. It is past time to acknowledge the gravity of this error and admit what we know to be true. The Insular Cases have no foundation in the Constitution, and the rest instead of racial stereotypes. They deserve no place in our law. And he concludes at the end of what? I'm scrolling down 10 pages. And the last paragraph is the part that's damning to me. Because no party asked to overrule the Insular Cases to resolve today's dispute, I joined the court's opinion. But the time has come to recognize that the Insular Cases rest on a rotten foundation, and I hope the day comes soon when the court squarely overrules them. We should follow Justice Harlan and settle this question outright. Our fellow Americans in Puerto Rico deserve no less. And that's my opinion. For those who are figuring out who the heck is Justice Harlan, Justice Harlan was the Supreme Court justice, the only dissent in Plessy versus Ferguson. He is, if Harlan sounds familiar for those who are really geeky to know that, that's where the Harlan Bible comes from. It is the Bible that he used to always carry. So when they swear to uphold the Constitution, that Bible is his. He was the only one that saw what was going to happen to the South, or even the rest of the United States, to the blacks, when they decided the other justices, and he was the only dissent, what was going to happen when you segregate based on race. And he saw this in the Insular Cases. He spent the entire time dissenting, going, what are you guys doing? You're judging on race and nationality and ethnicity, color of their skin. In fact, there were points where they were talking about, you know, they didn't, if they were savages, they didn't have allegiance to the same gods, so they had their own religions. They don't look like us, they don't act like us. Their form of government is different. Well, yes, we were invaded and colonized by the Spanish for 400 years. We had no rights. We were their property. And then all of a sudden, thanks to the Insular Cases, we were now United States' property to do whatever the heck they wanted. So, my hope is that there's another case that can finally break us free of this. American Samoa is the only one of the Insular Cases that are currently not even American citizens. They're just straight up property. And it's not all American Samoans. It is only those that are ethnically born. So it is literally the color of their skin, the language that they speak, the gods that they serve. And I find it interesting that in Justice Gorsuch's concurrence, he brought that up. So if anybody's interested in the Fidesamano, I hope I pronounced that correctly, the Fidesamano case where he is suing the federal government, I hope the Supreme Court takes that case. It's split in where one, I think the district court ended up getting a ruling for him, and then the circuit court ended up voting against him. I really hope somebody looks at that case. Is that the case is finally going to overrule? You know, sort of like when Plessy versus Ferguson was overruled by Brown versus Board of Education. I can never say that phrase. I don't know. And I really thought Vaello had a chance. I thought they had a good case. It's just until somebody just literally goes after it. And I understand why they didn't. I don't blame them, because when you look at it from the human perspective, like, why are you suing some dude because he moved to Puerto Rico? But this is where we are. And I'm heartbroken for him. I'm heartbroken for my parents because they can never go home. I'm heartbroken for my family who are in the middle of this. I mean, 46% of the island is under the poverty line. And Congress is too busy fighting with themselves for power. They don't care about us, and looks like they never will. So until somebody else, there's like Harlan and Gorsuch and even Thomas, finally steps up, and I will say Sotomayor as well, we're forever gonna be doomed. And at this point, why the hell are you still calling us American citizens when we're not? So, if I find another topic to talk about, talk to other people that have other opinions on correcting me on things that I think have right or not. I don't know. I'm still too angry right now. Hopefully I find something nice to talk about the next time. But in the meantime, I'm gonna stew in my anger. to you later.